It is 5 o'clock on May the 16th. The Bastrop EDC Board reserves the right to convene into executive session at any time during the regular meeting regarding any agenda item in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551 Government Code. We'll go right into number 2. Do we have any public comments this evening?
No, sir, not that I've seen.
Okay, very good. All right, we'll jump right into regular business and presentations. 3.1 will be the approval of meeting minutes from the regular BEDC board meeting of April 18th, 2022, and the special board meeting of May the 2nd, 2022.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from April 18th and May 2nd, 2022.
And I second it.
All right, we have a motion in front of us to accept the meeting minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Nay. The motion carries. All right, we'll jump right into 3.2, receive the financial report provided by City of Bastrop's Chief Financial Officer for the period ending April 2022.
Yeah, the report is as provided in the packet. No significant anomalies. Statements of clarification provided by Tracy is deemed necessary on the bottom. If there's any questions, we're willing to accept them.
In April, big expense number, was that paying off the 2018 bond?
Yes.
Just making sure. Thanks.
That budget transfer was approved today, by the way. So, and there's no need to accept the financials from here on out. Okay.
Any further questions or comments? Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, moving right along to 3.3, we are going to receive the presentation by BEDC consultant Steve Weathers. Hello, Mr. Weathers.
Good afternoon. Okay, this mic is live. Good. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the time. So first, I'm going to give you kind of an update of where we are and what I'm doing. And before I do that, I want to thank Angela and publicly acknowledge Angela and Jean for all the work they've been doing to put everything together. All the meetings that have been happening, none of that would have happened or transpired without their help. So I just want this board to know that they've really been doing a yeoman's task in pulling everything together, and they continue to support the process. So just want to make sure we are there. So a couple of weeks ago, I came to town. You all have a copy of the scope of work, and part of that scope of work, the first thing was kind of to do some alignment meetings. And so this last time I was in town, I had 14 meetings with 17 individuals, City Council, all of you as a board, the city staff, and I want to acknowledge the city manager for taking time from his day and his senior staff, his 2 assistant city managers and the CFO to meet. They were helpful also. Met with the BEDC staff and have input from them, and also the partners of the Chamber and the Visit Bastrop. And this go-around in town, I'm also meeting with county commissioners, the county's Director of Economic Development and Tourism, and then also I had a Zoom call with Councilmember Kirkland, and then I will have a meeting actually with Councilmember Lee here, I think tomorrow is coming up. So I've met all those players. And then we might also set something up with the superintendent of the independent school district, because I think education is important, something we really didn't have on our list before, but education is kind of paramount to economic development. So just want to kind of make sure we take in as many stakeholders as possible. So what we'll do after that, part of the scope of work is to deliver this alignment report back to all of you, and that's to be delivered in probably the month of June. My plan is right now is to come back to your June 20th board meeting and present that and kind of the highlights of that report and where we are. Okay, so that'll be a little bit more in depth. The other thing you all made a motion on or you approved was to hire a search firm, Jorgensen Consulting, to start an executive search. Part of my scope of work is to help with that, kind of be their point person. So I had a call last week with Todd Jorgensen, the managing partner there, and we talked about a number of things in moving that process forward. And one of the things that we have is, although there is a job description for this position, it's really make sure it's fresh. So what's going to happen is within the next couple of weeks, and I actually have a call with Todd again tomorrow, is already set up, is he's going to be talking to all of you as board members to try and get kind of your perspective on, what your expectations are of an executive director, opportunity areas, challenges, things of that nature. And try and, I don't want to say create a new profile, but somewhat create a new profile. And we'll use some things from the current profile, but just want to make sure we have everything that's current. So what you're going to receive from me in the next day or so is an email of what he's going to be asking you about. I just want to give all of you a heads up as to what to expect. And then Todd will work with his staff and work with the BDC staff to set up probably Zoom calls with you. I'm going to anticipate probably 30 minutes each to go through that profiling process. You okay? Just checking. Just checking. Okay. We'll also be providing some information to Todd, background information on the organization, budget, bylaws, strategic plan, those kinds of things. So make sure he's fully informed on that. And we'll start to kick the process off.
Hey, Steve, just one comment or question maybe. When I look through the back data that we had, the positions we're looking for comes up in all kinds of different titles, executive director, chief director, president, CEO, whatever. Just want to make sure that in the discussion with Todd or whatever, that we work that over and to see, I don't know if the title really is a highly important aspect of it as it is getting the person we want on board. So I'm pretty flexible with, whatever the title needs to be as we develop the discussions with Todd and stuff like that.
Won't it need to match the bylaws? And which we can obviously change the
Right.
bylaws, but I would think that would be a good first guide.
Yeah, as a guide, but I think when we look at where we are today and stuff, we can take a look and see, title is not, I think, as critical as getting that right person in.
Yeah, I agree. You want the absolute right person. I think just based on my experience, having worked around the country, what you find are a lot of independent economic development groups have a president, CEO, because their clients are business and they deal with that. But that really is the prerogative of this board, your bylaws, whatever you guys want. An opinion, which is worth what it's worth, is you may find a candidate that is currently a president, CEO, if they're going to make a transition, would want to transition with that same title. Or if they were a vice president, they may want to transition to, say, president, maybe not CEO. So it's really something that I think working with Todd, all of you talk about. But the mayor brings up an excellent point. You really want to match that. And you can change the bylaws. But I've been around so long, I'm the kind of person where title doesn't really mean a lot to me. It means, hey, getting the job done and doing the right stuff. So anyway, but it's a good point to kind of just keep in mind. Okay? Other questions, thoughts?
Well, just one question. Have you, during your discussions with all the 14 or 19, however many people that you had with, any surprises or anything, or pretty much what you expected to hear since you've already kind of met with several of us?
I would say the surprise is you probably have a lot more things in common among all the parties that you agree with, but maybe you don't talk about them. There are things that you disagree with each other on, but you talk about that a lot. So that's kind of interesting, okay? In the end, I will tell you what I'll do is this report is really not going to be Steve Weathers' opinion. It's going to be produced by all of you, all the stakeholders. So this will be a stakeholder report based on what you've given as input. I'm drafting it. The recommendations are really going to come from what your thought process was to make this, to really have a good economic development organization here that is efficient, effective, and doing really, the best job it can do. But on working with the city, with the county, with all the different partners that are out there, I think we've got a lot of good things that are going to come out of this. This will be only one piece of the puzzle, the strategic plan, which we'll start working on next. So these are pieces to a jigsaw puzzle. This is just one of the first pieces, okay? But all of you are critical, and I would say also all the stakeholders are critical to this.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate the breadth of stakeholders that you're encompassing at this point, because I know those are some that haven't been, outreached to in the past, and I think it's really good. We've worked with them, but not really as a stakeholder.
Yeah, and I think just based on past changes, turnover, all these different things, I think all the ones I've talked to are hungry to work together and work with each other. So that kind of they all have, and I think we talked about it before, your common vision is you want to go that way in a positive economic development, direction, and everybody in this area, the BEDC, the city, the county, the partners, all have a role to play to make that puzzle come together. And for the benefit really of just all the citizens that are here, all the taxpayers. That's really that's the customer in the end is the taxpayer. Okay?
Great. Any other questions from anybody? All right.
Okay.
Thank you
guys.
very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, we will move right into 3.4 then. Receive presentation and update by Doucette and Associates, engineering about the infrastructure project in the Bastrop Business and Industrial Park.
David is with us virtually, so I wanted to just say that and introduce you guys to David. He is online.
Good evening, David.
Hi, everyone. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I guess sometimes these virtual things are the only way, but the best way sometimes. So anyway, glad to be joining you guys. So I don't know if they had a chance to give you the kind of the preliminary sketches that we've come up with so far. I don't know if I gave it to them late, so I'm not sure if they had it. But I could share my screen, I think. Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, I believe you are allowed.
So anyway, in general, I'm not sure if I can share my screen, but in general, we've got the layout in, and the greatest news I can tell you is that the 400-foot extension that we have in the cul-de-sac is actually going to be outside of the habitat area, so we're not going to have any issues with getting our road built. So none of the environmental issues affect the road. That's the good news. I don't really have bad news. All I have right now is I'm still waiting on the SUE report. I should have already received that. They told me I'll be getting it this week, and I haven't received our geotechnical report. The SUE is the most prominent one that I need because that gives me the elevations of the gas mains that we have to cross with our sanitary sewer, and it also gives me the inverted elevation for the manhole that we have to tie into. And I don't have those yet, so I can't make a determination of whether we can go that route yet, but we should be getting that within a week. Lastly, we had our people out there doing investigations. We did soil investigations, waters of the U.S. investigations, and all that stuff is coming out favorable for us, so we'll have no impact with those issues. The toads, we can't find any of them out there. As I mentioned, the soils out there is not compatible to them. There's, everything being dried up is not compatible to them. There's fire ants galore out there, which is another bad thing for those Houston toads. I'm not an environmentalist, but this is all the things we've had like 3 or 4 meetings. These are all the things that they're all telling me. Sadly, to let you all know, that habitat line was just a line that somebody drew in based off of a grid the grid squares of a map. So somebody located them in the general area and then just actually increased the whole area to include that grid line. So that's how it was established, and we're not finding anything out there, and they're giving us a little bit of a runaround still that we haven't. So there's some other things we're going to have to do, and I should have a full report for that as well next week, and I'll be sending those over to the ladies there in the economic the EDC board or EDC. So pretty much that's what I've got. I got 3 reports I should be getting next week, or the end of this week or next week, and then we can really start making some serious determinations on how we're going to move forward. Was that too much at once?
No, that wasn't. It's good information. Thank you.
Yeah, we're plugging along, and so far, other than the environmental stuff, we've had good news on the environmental stuff. We haven't found anything, which is good. We haven't heard anything, which is also good. And the line is actually outside of our proposed roadway, so we can move forward that roadway without any issues.
Any questions from anyone?
Any questions?
Yeah, one question related to the connection going to the Mocha property.
Yes, sir.
Would that come in on the straight section, or would that actually connect in at the cul-de-sac? Do we know that from Mocha?
Yeah, I think the intent, I've spoken with the Mocha people. We actually had another meeting with them to talk about the environmental stuff, and I've spoken with them. Their site plan that they have doesn't match what we're going to do. and they know that now, and they're okay. They actually like what we're proposing to do better. But they're going to tie into the cul-de-sac is where they're planning on tying into.
Okay, good, makes sense. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate the update.
Oh, no, I wish I was there in person. Y'all have a great evening.
Great, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we will now move on to 3.5. Receive presentation from city staff regarding the Bastrop Convention Center Hotel project.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer and members of the board. There are a couple of things I wanted to give the board an update on this evening, and the first is, again, agenda item 3.5, and plug you guys into what's happening with the proposed Bastrop Hotel at the Convention Center. This is a project that was established as part of this fiscal year's work plan in our conversations around this time last year with the Bastrop City Council. The impetus for this project actually began several years ago. There were a couple of studies done that looked at the tourism industry in Bastrop in general, and more particularly what it would take to make the convention center more profitable and to increase its usability. And this is a rough summary, of course, but bottom line, that report came out and said there are three things that ought to be done about the convention center that would have a positive impact. One was to have some hotel space available and targeted 120 rooms. The other was the ability to have a full-service kitchen, either at the convention center or in a nearby hotel. There's some evidence that not having a full-service kitchen and only a catering kitchen was a bit of a barrier, and also significantly a lack of flexible breakout rooms. So we took that and we narrowed that down into some more particular project objectives, and some of this came out of that study, and some of that came from talking with others who are plugged into this field. And one was that we want to bring in somebody who is known a branded flag kind of operation, and an aspect of that is that those kind of hotels offer points and discounts to frequent users, and there's evidence to suggest that that's impactful. We would like to see this support and develop and spur retail development along the corridor. We're doing work to study that corridor now in more particular. Obviously, we want to attract business to the convention center, and an established objective is to ensure that it fits into the Bastrop look and feel, in particular in that location. By the way, if I haven't made it clear, we're talking about the city-owned property right across the street where the farmers market is located now as the site next door to the convention center. So beyond that, we've come up with some guiding principles to guide the thinking here as we pursue an agreement with a hotel developer. At the top of the list is to minimize risk and public financial participation. So far in this process, we've had a conversation with a handful of hotel developers. We've done that in an informal kind of way. We have not sent out a request for qualifications or proposals, and in fact, we're not sure we need to do that. Based on the positive response we've received from a few potential developers so far in the process. And then again, at the top of that list is pretty apparently we can do this with a very minimal contribution of city funds and very little risk to the city. One scenario could be that there is some debt issued that the city would have to back, and of course there would be a risk associated with that. But the financial information we've seen so far indicates that this is viable and funded through, that the debt service could come from new revenues associated with the hotel development. So another guiding principle is that we would like whatever private sector partner we end up in a relationship with to not only develop and operate the hotel, but to operate the convention center as well. We don't see any particular need for the city to continue to be in the convention center operation business, and that it would just make more sense if our successful future partner did all of that. We want that partner to have a good, strong track record, and the ones we have talked to so far certainly do. And of course, we use the convention center for a lot of local beneficial events and some particular city uses, and we would want some reasonable use to be maintained in whatever agreement we have. So we did employ Joe Esch, whom you guys know, to run point on this for the city of Bastrop. In this capacity, Joe will work with the city's financial advisor. Again, this is likely going to involve the issuance of debt, and with the city attorney to again guide us with our continued conversations with potential developers. We're going to present a status report to council in June. We have put together a timeline where hopefully we can enter into an agreement with someone that meets all of those guiding principles and objectives here over the next few months and meet that hotel need sooner rather than later. Again, not seeing the need for any Type B, 4B sales tax dollars being contributed to this effort, but because we do see particular economic development benefits associated with all that, we wanted to keep this board informed. Can I answer any questions?
Yeah, let me ask this. It just sounds familiar to me. Have we not looked at this before in the past on actually a couple of instances about talking about having something similar to this?
I think it's been talked about for the last several years. Again, the idea came out of a 2015 study that was done.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever gotten to the point where we were talking with a potential developer about pulling something off. I could be wrong about that. Mayor, if you're aware of any real discussions with...
I think Kevin was going to fill in a couple of holes as well. Yes, there was a study done, and they were looking at boutique hotels, but the things that are going on now is now the Art Institute is here. Now the growth is going on. Now Tesla, now the convention center. Folks, it's the double-edged sword. Folks are complaining that, boy, you better book something a year out because there's a lot of things going on there. But the feedback that we got even from Visit Bastrop was when they're marketing the convention center, having a hotel that's attached is just a whole nother ballgame of the kinds of conferences that you can bring to town and fill up that hotel and other hotels. So yes, there had been a study. It didn't say everyone's going to be fighting to do this. It was not sure that it was good at the time. Kevin, do you have comments?
Yeah, I would say that in 15, obviously, when that was done, even probably going up until, 17, 18, you would have gotten, some interest with a great deal of city participation in the construction or, the financing of it. So it's just the case is so much easier to make now with all of our hotels completely booked up and, for this foreseeable future. And so the market's completely different now than it was. And so good thing we didn't do anything then. It would have cost us a lot more, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely changed. It's just, just as an observation, I'm assuming they're going to have their own hotel parking, maybe several-story parking, because we all know how parking is down here. It's really not available. So hopefully they'll be in the mix when they take a look at it, right?
I think they're fairly used to looking at the whole program where they wouldn't be successful flag
Well, and talk about impact, I hope there's an impact study done on Chestnut, given our current commute coming in, right? So,
We'll be talking about roads in just a bit, absolutely, yeah.
I did have one question, I guess the convention center that's owned, or conference center is owned by the city?
It is.
So is it profitable, or how many years since it's started, how many of those years has it been profitable?
If by profitable you mean.
Making money,
Covers the.
all expenses?
Covers the debt service? No.
Everything?
There is a subsidy, if you will, from hotel motel revenues that cover those expenses.
Okay, so
Right.
it's, as a standalone, it's not standalone profitable as its own existence. So this would.
Not sure that was ever the objective.
Understood. I'm
But
just
no.
asking, when you look at a marketing situation, offering it to companies and then trying to negotiate out operating contracts, again, it's either loss prevention or actually making profits. So that's,
So I would envision the city would continue to service the debt. That debt only has a few more years attached to it. It is about $500,000 a year. And then, once that is covered, then I think that profitability objective is more easily obtained.
unless we go back into debt again to execute this
If
proposal.
it's a debt that's on the city, sure, and that's what we're
Contemplating.
trying to avoid.
Okay.
Yeah, having the city back the bonded indebtedness is different from having a plan and communicating to the underwriters that a city revenue stream is dedicated to paying off that debt. Those are two different things, and we're not anticipating that there would need to be a dedicated City of Bastrop revenue stream to servicing that debt. That would be different.
Okay. And again, kind of going back to Jen's comment about parking, then the assumption would be, since the city will reserve days or event spaces, that then parking would need to encapsulate both the 120 rooms, parking separate from the use of that conference center, because the city has said that they're going to reserve the conference center. So when we look at parking or even consume parking in order to make that construction, I think the parking needs to be considered as 100% of hotel occupation plus 100% of the convention
Okay.
center
Thank you.
occupation combined. Otherwise, it'll be undercut substantially.
All right. So the mayor used the word boutique hotel, and I wanted to maybe provide a little bit of context there too, and that word may require a little bit of definition. I didn't use it in the PowerPoints, but that is a descriptive word that comes up when we talk about this sort of thing. Typically, when you think of a boutique hotel, you're thinking about something that's not necessarily attached to a brand, although that's not always the case, or you're thinking about something that's smaller, maybe not 120 rooms, right? I do think the word is appropriately applied to the kind of look and feel that we're trying to establish here, something that fits into an urban environment that doesn't create a traffic problem on the neighbors, that's attractive and has kind of a unique kind of vibe to it, but still is attached to a major flag or a brand. We think that's all accomplishable from what we understand.
The main reason I used boutique was because the study in 2015 kept referring
Right.
to it as a
It did.
boutique hotel.
Sure did.
That's the only reason I brought it up.
No, I appreciate the update, because like I said, I seem to remember there was like a study or two that private individual or private companies had looked at it, and it at that time didn't seem to make sense. But yes, the whole environment has changed these days, especially with all the bigger companies coming in here, the hotels being full. This may sound like a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So city owns it means it's not going to be on the tax rolls, correct?
Well, it doesn't necessarily get removed from the tax rolls. We're not necessarily.
It's use. It doesn't matter if the city owns it, it's what the use is. That's what's.
Okay. I was just curious is all.
No, thank you.
All right, thank you.
So this likely would then be a property tax generator as well? I was thinking of it as just sales tax and hot tax generation.
Oh, no, it absolutely could be.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, well, we will then move right into 3.6, receive presentation from city staff regarding capital projects potentially funded by Type B sales tax revenues.
Thank you, sir. What we're doing here is giving the board some information that we've already provided to the city council. We're still fairly early in the process of developing the fiscal 23 budget, and so your feedback and direction to your staff or to me about what we do with all this over the next few weeks would be appreciated. So a few weeks ago, the city council in the workshop session did receive a draft little plan from the city staff. That capital plan was included in the same thing council got on April 26th is in your agenda packet. That plan covers a wide range of potential project categories: drainage, facilities, parks, transportation, improvements to the electric system, improvements to the water and wastewater system. And along with that, we've identified a lot of funding sources. It is a real priority of the city to make sure that when we look at all of these projects, and by the way, I think we'd be hard-pressed to find another city of the size of Bastrop that is looking at as an extensive a capital program as we are. Tens of millions of dollars that still need to be spent on our water and wastewater system over the next few years. This capital plan assumes about $40 million in both short-term and long-term debt to rehabilitate and reconstruct city streets. The city has been talking about a November of 2023 bond program that would fund those street reconstruction and drainage efforts. We are a few months away from receiving a drainage master plan that will point to some needed drainage improvements. And so how we spread those costs out from all of our funding sources, how we make sure that development and growth appropriately pays for those improvements to the water and wastewater system that's causing the need for those improvements is all really important stuff. We take a very aggressive approach to grants as well. We have targeted grants to fund the rehabilitation of the old Iron Bridge, for example. We are also looking to have grants improve the drainage situation in Gills Branch watershed, and that is estimated to be a $15 million project as well. So as it regards the Type B sales tax, there's two general categories of projects that this draft CIP targets for funding, and one of those categories is what we can generally call growth-related transportation projects. And you see on the screen a list of what we're talking about there. Later on in the presentation, I'll have Mr. Job walk you through some more specifics and show you locations for each of those. But that's to give you an idea of the kind of transportation projects we're looking for 4B sales tax funding for. And the other big category is a fiber optic network infrastructure that is our broadband project. And you will recall that last year, this board approved in your budget a $50,000 amount to conduct a feasibility study to assess the feasibility of the city building that broadband fiber network. We have received that report. That report was presented to the City Council in some detail just last Thursday. Council members did ask some questions that we are working through answering now. I would like to suggest that at your next meeting, your June 20th meeting, that we have the consultant that was selected to conduct that report be here and give you a very similar presentation. Hopefully by then we will have resolved and addressed questions that were raised by council last Thursday. I'm going to give you just a really high-level overview of what the results of that feasibility study are. In general, the report indicates that this is feasible, that there is a reasonable payback from constructing the infrastructure necessary to make all of that work. That infrastructure is defined and described in 3 different phases in that report. Phase 1 is the backbone or the middle mile fiber ring that would be built within the city where we have, where Bastrop Power and Light is the service provider, in the city where Bluebonnet is the service provider, and then also into the city's ETJ where Bluebonnet is the power provider as well. That's important because we can take advantage of existing infrastructure to make all of this work. That first phase, that middle mile fiber ring, according to our consultant, has a total design and construction estimate at this point of $2 million. Phase 2 would be the middle mile distribution system, and that cost estimate for both design and construction at this point is a little over $12 million. And then phase 3, which would be conducted by the ISP or the internet service provider, which could possibly be the city of Bastrop, but that is not the recommendation from the consultant. That could be the result of a partnership agreement between the city and someone who is currently set up to be in the ISP business. And design and construction of phase 3 has an $8 million price tag associated with that. So what the draft CIP that's in your packet and the fiscal forecast for the 4B fund, which is also in your packet, assume is that for fiscal 23, we would use a little over $800,000 in 4B cash to for the design of phase 1, that backbone that is described in the report. Going back to the transportation improvements, we are also targeting that $800,000 to do design work for targeted intersections throughout the community. We'll show you that here in a bit. The conduct of a street impact fee analysis so that we can do our own analysis of what the proportionate share of a developer's cost as they are impacting the street system would be, and the updating of our master transportation plan. And then for fiscal 24, still talking about a cash contribution from the 4B fund, the actual construction of the fiber optic for phase 1, and that is as far as we go with what's in the draft CIP. So that would be what that would be cash-funded projects. The fiscal forecast and the draft CIP also assume a $20 million debt issuance that would be serviced by 4B funding, and that would go to pay for the improvements that are listed on the screen here: Blakey Lane Extension, Business Park Development, South Street to Lovers Lane. South Street to Lovers Lane is an alternative route, alternative to Lovers Lane that is that would relieve the traffic impact associated with development, namely the studio development in that part of town. We've been in conversation with that developer's team about how to address the significant impacts, according to their traffic impact analysis, that they are causing at Lovers Lane and Highway 71 in particular. In fact, according to their numbers, the level of service at that intersection, Lovers Lane and 71, becomes level service F. And so we've all been talking with each other about how do we address that problem. And I think we're at consensus that the most expeditious way to do that is to build a different way out of that part of town, a different access point for folks who are trying to head east on 71 towards Houston, which is, bottom line, the cause of that level of service F result at that intersection. Yes, sir.
But before we go on to the next one, let me just go back one slide.
Okay.
Your slide, just a little, right there, said that Type B funding for the, this particular one, which would be the fiber, right? This one was on the fiber. You mentioned 810,000, but in what you've delivered to us, it shows at $2 million for 2023. Where's the disconnect? I don't
In cash
understand
or
the
debt? There's a difference between how much of that is cash.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
so the total amount you'd be asking for is $2 million, but it'd be 810,000 cash and then the rest in
bonds.
long-term bonds?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, and
But
then,
but the 810 also includes the
Design for those,
intersection
right.
improvements, impact fee analysis, and
I'm
transportation.
trying to connect the dots here, just so I see it. And then go to the next slide, if you would. So you're going to, on FY '23, you're saying that it's a debt issuance of $20 million. And are you suggesting those are like, what, 10 or 20-year bonds, or what,
Those
what's
would
the
likely,
assumption on?
that would likely be 20-year debt. That is the assumption we put into the fiscal forecast.
Okay. Do you have what that payout would be on an annualized basis over the 20 years?
It's built into the fiscal forecast. Yes, sir, it is.
1.487 million, according to what the city prepared for the BEDC budget. Sorry, it shows 1.485 million for this fiscal year. Of course, we haven't looked at any of this.
Right.
So none of this has
No,
been
you
developed by BEDC. This has been developed
No,
strictly
I'm just.
by the city.
And actually, there'd be no additional debt service for the next fiscal year, for fiscal '23. The assumption is those payments would begin in fiscal '24, but yeah, Mr. Gossett is right. It would be about 1.5 million per year.
Okay, I guess when I get down to I guess these are a little bit on the confusing side, because I'm looking at total all funding sources for FY '23, and I'm looking at 4B, and it has $6.6 million in '23, 6.2 in '24, 11.3 in '25. I'm just trying to match it up, and I can't seem to do that right now. So
You are,
I'm looking at page 34 of the presentation that you sent to us, and perhaps we should just understand, those are apparently would be long-term debts.
Yes, sir.
Or bonds, I'm assuming. I'm just trying to understand, is that 6.6 million in '23, is what it's going to come out of our budget that you're asking for?
so if you turn to the slide, the page in your packet that is labeled Type B Fund Fiscal Forecast, that is a summary, that is a roll-up of all of the budget impacts between the existing debt service of about $270,000 a year, and the new debt service, which would begin in fiscal '24. And above that, you see a line that says city projects and programs. That would be current revenue funded or cash funded.
So the ending working capital in each of those fiscal years
So
goes from 5.8 million to 5.4 to 5.9 to 6.7.
just to give you a sense of the fund's capacity to cover that, thank you, Mayor, and I've got a slide that summarizes it. At the end of fiscal '23, there's about $6 million left in working capital, and that actually grows to a little over $7 million after fiscal 2027. We have had no discussion about this with EDC staff or any member of the board, and certainly we would want to dive into the details over the next few weeks.
Okay.
And again, that budget doesn't include existing projects that are being drug out, and things such as the completion of shovel-ready for the industrial park. Those don't appear to be.
Actually, it does.
I didn't see it listed in
The,
this group.
perhaps I didn't include it in that summary, but the build-out of the industrial park is on the list of capital projects, and as soon as we get an estimate for that, we can certainly plug it in.
But could you direct me to where it is included in the provided information, or?
Again, we don't have cost estimates yet, but we do have the line item in the plan for business park development.
But all the numbers are zero in the business
We
park
don't have
development.
estimates yet, right.
So again, with this fiscal forecast as it's prepared by the city, it doesn't include the existing budget items that were
That would
already
need to be-
prepared by the BEDC, even from last year's, or the current year's budget process, which is a multi-year process. In this one, you just didn't take any of that in. Because the budget process is more than 1 year. And so they have multi-years on that. So right now, just to clarify, this is
So-
zeros.
So if we're missing information, we're missing information. I personally have made several efforts to get good information to build a fiscal forecast. We still continue to work through that. And if we're missing estimates that currently exist, we're happy to add them.
It just to make sure it's clear that what is
Right.
and what is not in it, because that's an underestimate based on the last meeting that we had between the joint city council and the BEDC that developed a multi-year plan. And so that is yet to be pending for this year to provide mutual input.
Happy to plug in cost estimates. Yes, sir.
Okay, so if I just look at over the years, the net income or loss by doing these programs, we show 1.179 net income for this year. Next year's a loss of 456, and then we end up like 560, 770, and then 979 throughout the years. Going on to what Bill just said, if the programs that we have that are not on this list are not including in this, am I reading it right that basically our entire budget, for the most part, would be geared toward these projects? Is that what this is suggesting?
If we are missing projects that the EDC is planning to or obligated to cover over the next few years, I am very happy to receive that information and plug it into the next version of this fiscal forecast.
Okay, perhaps.
But I'm not sure what we're missing.
Okay, perhaps let me rephrase
Okay.
it or pay it in a different way. If all I saw was just this forecast right here, it would appear to me, and maybe others, that almost our entire budget for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now is going to be taken up with the CIP projects that you have listed here. So that means that there's really no other monies for any projects from now and 5 years out from now, unless we get a huge amount of revenue somewhere else.
The way I'm looking at it is you have between $6 and $7 million a year.
That's our ending work capital. I see that
Right.
as well.
Which is available for appropriation.
Minus the reserve that we have to have.
Do you have a minimum reserve balance requirement?
I believe we're required to have a minimum reserve.
I'm not sure of that requirement, but if you have one, we're happy.
815 according to the numbers, 815,000.
So less than $1 million.
And is that in the
And
bylaws?
something to just put things in perspective, Ron, is this year's current budget is 3.3 million. So if there's 5 million left, And you did, as much as you did this year, you would still be well in excess of your reserves.
The tone of the April 26th workshop discussion with the city council, and I hope I don't step on toes here, but my interpretation of the message I received on April 26th was that this community needs to take an aggressive approach to building the transportation network that we are already behind, and that a strategy of waiting for development to construct that necessary new roadway capacity would only put us further behind. So admittedly, this is different. It's an aggressive approach to building that roadway capacity. It is, I think, obvious that this has everything to do with growth and commercial development. I don't think you need to be a traffic engineer to know that traffic is bad and getting worse. In fact, a couple of you made comments about that just a few minutes ago. And so we're trying to be strategic about this. We're trying to identify those intersections that we know right now are failing. Those intersections, especially along 71 at Hasler and Childers, and I mentioned Lover's Lane. Council mentioned a couple of others during the April 26th workshop. We're becoming further and further behind, and that's why the CIP advocates an aggressive approach. The intent isn't to take away the EDC's ability to enter into performance agreements. My read of this is that there's still significant capacity within the fund to do that. And frankly, that's been my observation for a couple of years now, that there is significant capacity within this fund through which we can solve problems.
But to clarify your comments, though, 90% of what you're requesting is actually to create a new business of fiber optic in the city.
Right.
Not transportation, not everything that you just described.
Is not.
That's less than 10% of everything that you're requesting.
Okay.
So really 90% of what you're requesting is to enter an entire new business model run by the city or in partnership with the city, according to what you just described.
And happy to have that consultant stand up in front of you on June 20th to answer your questions.
No questions, just clarifying your statement of,
council
it's just
council
still
had
less than 10% of all the money is for all the things you described.
Great.
90% of it is to enter a new business model of fiber optics.
Okay.
Correct? From, what you presented.
That would be, I'll take your word that it's
Summary.
90%. That
It's
sounds
about-
right.
Okay.
And you're right, that is a significant different business model.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll keep the conversation going. And again, if we're missing anything in the assumptions, the fiscal forecast is as only good as the assumptions that are into it. And if we're missing some important data, and I'll follow up with the staff to make sure we've got any good cost estimates that exist plugged into the forecast.
Okay, and just for refreshing my memory, who is the consultant again for the fiber network?
Schneider Engineering. They have offices in Boerne, Texas, and in College Station. And it is on their calendar to be here on June the 20th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You mentioned an impact study. Do we get, is that made available to us?
Absolutely, sure it
Okay.
is. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions. All of these projects fall into the area of public benefit. Am I correct? Not working in a vacuum on our transportation. We have several partners in that, TxDOT, the county, and what all. We was talking about parking earlier, and certainly we can build massive parking garages, but it still doesn't mitigate the ingress and egress into those parking facilities. We're merely moving the
traffic situation from the parking area into the intersection. So you have intersection enhancements. You're working with Campo, if I understand correctly, working with Campo relative to some transportation enhancement projects, some corridor studies. Certainly that
In particular on Loop 150, yes, sir.
That is correct.
Chestnut, yes, sir.
Which belongs to TxDOT at this point in time, and so they're certainly going to be our partner in there.
Right.
And so as we continue these discussions, I would like to make sure that we ensure that discussion includes those partnerships that we have, so we show how we might mitigate the cost of the city as well as to the EDC. As long as that public benefit is occurring, you know, I'm fully supportive of it, but we're not working in a vacuum, and I appreciate that adding that to our discussion, if we could, please.
Thank you, sir, and I think you can extend that logic to the fiber optic project as well. It's been the subject of a great deal of countywide discussion and study for a couple of years now to demonstrate the extent to which there is a need. State legislation has changed this last session, all working towards identifying internet service like a utility. It has become more commonly accepted that this isn't just a luxury for folks. It's a life necessity, and there's some real important decisions facing the community here about just what is the city's appropriate role in all of that. Those are all great questions that need to be thought through, and we haven't thought through all of that yet. My presentation tonight was for the most part to let the board know where we are in all of that, as preliminary as some of this discussion is, and to give you a sense of overall affordability. That's why we do the fiscal forecasting. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
All right. Very interesting. Okay, 3.7, discussion regarding the proposed support service agreement between the city of Bastrop, Texas and the BEDC. It's just really more of a point of clarification. We actually already have a shared service agreement between BEDC and the city. It was signed back on October the 1st, 2021, and it expires September the 30th, 2022. So we already have an existing agreement with us. There was kind of a question probably 4 or 5 months ago about it. I just wanted to clarify that we actually do have an agreement that's in force right now. So that was really the reason behind 3.7.
Chair, there was a new shared services contract that was provided, and since we're in a budget discussion, I think, to your point, the one that we have expires in September.
Right.
So I would hope that we don't wait till September to start working on next year's.
No, and we've had some preliminary discussion, and we've actually had our attorneys involved in it as well, and there's a lot of questions. And I agree with you. It is expiring. We know that. But what we received is just doesn't, there's a lot of reasons why it's hasn't been agreed to yet. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about that in the next one here. So, thank you very much.
I'm sorry, but there's several in the new service agreement there's questions on?
Oh, yes. Yeah, in fact, yeah.
I understand that. I thought that was related to more so the Main Street component that was pulled from there. Am I correct?
Well, there were several different things in there. There was a lot of changes in what was presented to us versus what we've had in the past. So we're looking at that. We're looking at, of course, the Main Street agreement, which will be brought up next. So there were things that we were not in agreement with. So there's more work to be done. Definitely more work to be done.
We as a board, or we as individuals on the board?
Well, the people the board members that have looked at it and had our attorney take a look at it as well, there's been lots of questions, lots of red line.
I'm just trying to get caught up. No.
Absolutely, and I'm just saying that, and I thought that you had a copy.
I do.
If not, we'll
I do.
Okay, all right.
I didn't see any points that made my hair stand up, but evidently I need to get more educated, and I certainly will.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, then we'll go ahead and move on to 3.8, and that's a discussion regarding the proposed BEDC Main Street Program agreement between the BEDC and the city of Bastrop. And if you'll discuss that one.
Yeah, so the agreement that was proposed, it was presented back last year, and Janor was following up with Paul, and then recently Jen followed up with the city manager as well, Paul, to try and clarify that and get that finalized, because we believe that it was of our interest and the city's interest to provide the funding and agreement for the BE Main Street. And as of now, that still has not reached an agreement. The statement of the prior topic, where the Main Street program would not be incorporated into the city service agreement that we have established and is clear, will not be agreed to, is also based on recommendation from legal, in that it is not a service provided by the city to the BEDC, and that it should be a standalone agreement. So at this point, we are pretty much back to where it started back in the part of last year, and the subsequent follow-up with Jen, which did not achieve any further advancement. So at this point, unless there is further discussions between Jen and the city, then it probably looks like there will not need to be an agreement for Main Street, because there won't be an agreement to fund Main Street, which we could then address next year again, until we reach a point where there is agreement to proceed. So it's kind of the summary of where we are, and so no funding has been provided. And again, I think the number one point there is that from a fiscal point of view, to have the breakdowns of the spending so that we are following our fiscal responsibilities, especially with respect to the percentages related to advertising and promotion into the total budget of the BEDC, that's pretty much a no-go. If we don't end up having that, then it's very difficult for us to maintain our fiscal responsibilities. So that one item has been essentially probably the crux of the situation. And so at this point, there is no further progress. I don't know if any further comments by others.
No, but I would really like to sit down again and figure this out, so.
But based on what Bill just said, it appears to be, we appear to be in an impasse. I'm just trying to figure out what the continuing negotiations would entail, and would it bear? Let me finish. Would it bear any fruit, or are we just spinning our wheels at this point in time? You know, we just voted to spend $39,000, $50,000 to an out-of-state firm, and now we're talking about $50,000, maybe 1% of our total budget, and I'm just trying to figure out why we're taking so much time on this. If they're not going to agree to whatever it is that we are asking them to agree to, let's just move on.
If you don't mind here, it's really not an issue of the amount of dollars. It's not, we've always been behind and funded the Main Street project, so it's not an issue at all about the amount of money. It is being the reporting of it, how it's being used, and the accounting of it, which we need the accounting like any other entity would need accounting. We've asked for it, and it seems to be a sticking point. I mean, we present, now correct me if I'm wrong, okay, but we did present a agreement that was turned down, and then this other agreement came in as part of the service agreement, and that can't be part of the service agreement because it's not a service between us. So therefore, it has to go back to a separate agreement. And again, if I'm not mistaken, we had proposed and given a agreement to be reviewed, and maybe we can go back to that agreement and just go for that one sticking point, which is the accountability, and then we can get this thing going. But it is not a dollar amount issue at all.
I appreciate that, and I also appreciate that there was the initial service agreement with the Main Street project being included in there was a mistake, and it needed to be pulled. That's a done deal. That's off to the side. At some point in time, though, I think we need to recognize that we're at an impasse and that BEDC is going to have to do what BEDC needs to do and the city's going to have to do what the city needs to do. And that we seem to be having the same conversation every time we come around. Perhaps it's because I'm the newbie that I'm trying to ascertain what the importance of it is. I understand complying with whatever rules, regulations, whatever legalities, whatever fiduciary responsibilities must be adhered to and what all, but at some point in time, once you beat your head against that wall, it's time to maybe step over and go through a doorway.
I totally get it. I think we would like to try it one more time, and then what we may do is come to the conclusion you just came to. I don't know.
Could I ask that the rest of the board be apprised of whatever the negotiation discussion was so that we can make our own determination at some point in time?
Yeah, it's available. I'll make the recording available to you.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I? I only do this because I want to try to help and not contribute to any wasting of anyone's time. If the next step is going to be a negotiation with me, then I don't see that as helpful. I did try to explain this to Ms. Wall, and I apologize if my explanation wasn't clear. I'm in no position to negotiate here, right? I have, in my mind, clear policy direction from my boss on how the Main Street funding ought to be structured. And it's not at all about the format of the agreement and whether or not Main Street ought to be part of the support services agreement. That's easy peasy. I don't care. It can be 15 agreements. That's really not at the heart of the issue. At the heart of the issue, the disconnect is what you guys are calling accountability. And I would vociferously object to the use of that word in this context. I don't think accountability is the issue. Since the budget workshop where this argument, I guess, first got started from last fall, I think I have consistently said I am very happy to have city staff come to as many Main Street EDC board meetings as necessary to tell you what we're doing with the funds and line that up with whatever objectives you have and even report to you on how the money gets spent, okay? I do object, for whatever this is worth. I'm only the city manager and I don't do these final agreements. I do object to two things that are inconsistent with the policy direction that I think I'm operating under from the city council. One is this notion that we are requesting reimbursement and that we submit a list of expenses before the reimbursement happens. And I do object to the idea of allocating the $50,000 to, in line item specific detail, to the dollar amount, to line items in the Main Street budget. I think that is unnecessary. I think it's a waste of time. I think it is a wrong-headed view of how the relationship should work. But let me also say, my opinion doesn't matter. And what I suggested to Ms. Wall is you guys come back, present something to the city council that meets those objectives. I likely won't recommend it, but I don't know that that matters. Work with your city attorney. Work with your attorney. The city attorney, by the way, did review the format that we did send you, just to put that out there. But work with Mr. Zeck, put together an agreement for funding Main Street that you're happy with, and I won't get in the way of putting that on the city council's agenda and get this off the dime. So there are two things. I'll recognize, I'll take some responsibility for being part of the problem because I did recommend this approach to the city council. I do object to the approach that's being advocated here. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's part and parcel of the kind of thing that creates the relationship problem and the lack of alignment. But I don't need to lecture you. I'm sorry. You guys tell us what you want. Tell the city council what you want, and we'll put that on the city council's agenda. But negotiating with me is not going to get you anywhere. Just making that clear.
That's an interesting, what you just said was interesting in as much that you're not the one to negotiate with, but yet you're the one that put the proposals together. So you
that was ultimately adopted by the city council.
I understand that, and I think really we only have a couple of issues that we're working on, and it's how the money is spent and how it gets reported. And to me, those are such small items, whether you personally like them or you personally don't like them. I don't think that should be the issue.
Okay.
I think the issue is we're so close to getting it done how we used to do it, we're asking for you to give us a report so that it fits what we need to do,
It's not
really
the way we
nothing.
used to do it. In fact, it was a
If you
change.
look at the prior agreements that we had, we're not asking for anything different.
Okay, not the most
So-
recent ones.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, Chair. The document that was signed that Mr. Gossett is referencing was a change to how it had been done for many, many, many years before that.
Okay.
And that was sent by this board, and that never got executed. So it's not a historical, this is how we used to do it. Because it hasn't been executed, so it hasn't been paid, so no money's changed hands.
Well, I think that we can discuss this and try to come back with something that would satisfy to get this thing off the dime, because I don't think we're really that far apart. I really don't. So thank you for your comments. Okay. We will move on then to 3.9, discussion regarding scheduling the BEDC workshops, including the fiscal year 22 and 23 budget. Gene, you want to come up and, I'm sorry? Oh, Angela, I'm sorry. Angela.
Sorry, it took me a second to get it turned on. We just need to look at our calendars and figure out a good time to start budget workshop process. It's coming up pretty quick, and now that we've had some requests made of the BEDC, it's time to start. So anybody have any ideas? Do you want to do it during the day? Do you want to keep it on a Monday? I'm just looking for a discussion among the board to see what they prefer.
When do we need to, what are our deadlines? Guess we should work from there at least.
I need to have a first draft inputted into the city's new software by June 30th for them to include to a budget workshop on July the 26th, I believe. We have to have the final version to the city for the city council to approve at 2 separate readings in September. I think I got all that by memory.
So to get it, after the workshop, you would need a couple weeks or so to get it in to be comfortable? So
Yeah, 2 weeks would do it, but we may have to have more than one workshop to even get to that initial draft, depending on which programs and projects y'all want to entertain. I mean, do we keep going the way we've been doing it, even though we're short-staffed? Or are we going to hire enough staff to then to do the projects and the programs that we've been budgeting for? That's kind of the discussion we're looking to have.
Okay.
So tentative date, at least for the next one, we were looking for June, somewhere in between June 7th and June 10th, Jen, right? Yeah. So that'd be the Tuesday through that Thursday.
So we would need to make sure that we got everything done in the one meeting and didn't need the second. Otherwise, we wouldn't have time to schedule the second.
It's already that's first available.
Oh, Okay, so we better get it done in one.
Yeah.
And probably we ought to meet the first of the
To
week in case we
clarify,
need to meet again.
just to clarify, the numbers, and I have talked to Ms. Waldron about this to make sure, the numbers that I have to have inputted for the city to discuss is basically a working budget. It's a draft budget. It does not need to be finalized until we get closer to September.
I guess we need to kind of put our heads together and come up with the date between the 7th and the 10th. So, whether it's anytime during that time, just put out an email to us and see what the schedules are. But I think it should work for most everybody here, unless somebody right now can say they're not going to be available during that time frame, right?
Is there a preference to do it in a standard workshop like we've done during the day before and maybe have lunch, or?
And the earlier the better. I mean, I think if it's between the 7th and the 10th, let's do it on the 7th.
Okay,
Would be
starting
my
at,
recommendation. Is that?
There's a Cultural Arts Commission meeting on the 7th that is from 10 to 12, so you'd have to.
Afternoon of the 7th? After,
7th is a Tuesday.
And I guess we need to do it here.
We must do things in public.
Okay, just want to make sure.
So if you would, I mean, I would suggest the 7th. Now, if somebody,
We can do the 7th in the afternoon.
okay, and so why don't we do it then after that meeting that the mayor just referred to?
Yeah, the Cultural Arts Commission is scheduled from 10 to 12, and you never know how those meetings go, so I would suggest like 1 o'clock. And Jen, are you saying later is better? I mean, so would you rather do like 2 or something like that?
2 o'clock's fine.
Super. Let's.
okay, I'll send out an
2 to
invite.
6, let's call 4 hours and
I have a 4 o'clock meeting that day. Usually 2 hours is
more than enough.
more than enough.
All right, 2 to 4, and then we've got marching orders, and if we need to do some more things to pull together, then we can work on that, and then.
Do you want to go ahead and reserve the 10th as well? Pick a time on the 10th, and then that can be a
Excellent idea.
backup?
Yeah, let's see what's on the 10th of that Friday. So yes, so yeah, 2 to 4 on the 7th, and let's go again, at least set up again. If we could do like 1 to 3 on Friday, would that work for most every folks? Okay, very good.
And Jeff agrees.
He's
Give us
not
proxy.
here to disagree.
I'll send out an invite tomorrow, and if anybody comes up with anything that is a conflict, just respond to me and let me know, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're getting there. 3.10, receive updates from the BEDC staff, the BEDC website, staffing, the Corks wastewater study, Believe in BISD visits, and the 8th Annual Youth Career Day.
The first part is me. Jen has been kind enough to work with me in an advisory capacity, if you will, to, I guess, help bring my marketing skills up to where they should be now. And we're working with the website company Golden Shovel to just give it a refresh, make it look newer, more streamlined. We're trying not to do a complete new website. That's very expensive. We haven't had this one very long, but she had some really good ideas that I appreciate to make it look just a fresh new look. Oh, and the other one is the BEDC staffing. We have a new administrative assistant that will be starting next Monday.
Good evening, thank you. I'm in for round 2. So really quick, we had originally planned on having the finalized wastewater study to you all for this board meeting. Due to additional feedback and just tweaking of the information to make sure we capture everything that we needed to capture to present to you, they did ask to present in June. So we apologize for the delay, but it's for a good reason, to make sure that the reporting is what we were anticipating and the information that really needs to be shared with you all. So thank you for your patience on that.
Quick question on that one.
Sure.
Just, if I remember clearly, that was just the presentation of the study. not anything related to project funding or anything? There's no input we need
That
to
is
do for budget?
correct.
Okay.
That is correct. It really just identifying the overall area and topography and what would work and not work, that sort of thing. It has nothing to do with actual plants or locations or anything like
Okay,
that.
thanks.
Yep. And then the second item for myself is the Bastrop ISD and the Chamber of Commerce. They do, we believe in BISD, and what that means is basically really digging into each school and providing huge pats on the back and thank yous to all of our school teachers and staff that nurture and create our opportunities with our students. And of course, for us as an economic development, that's our future workforce. And so every year, the BEDC participates in 2 of those, mainly focused on 2 of the high schools. We participate at the Cedar Creek High School as well as Bastrop High School. And so we did represent with 2 other sponsors at the Cedar Creek High School, and then also at Bastrop High School with 1 additional. And basically, the small amount of funding that goes into that goes right back to the school teachers, providing things like a water cooler in their lounge, or a printer or a laminator, things that really benefit and help the teachers do their day-to-day activities. So I just wanted to share that with you, that we did participate in both of those. Both of those happened in late April. And then the final item on the agenda is the Youth Career Day. This is our 8th year participating and providing sponsorship and working with the school district to put this event on. We kind of pulled all the stops out this year to make this happen. For you that have not been on our board and part of these conversations, we did start this program back in 2015. And, through the years, as you can see, I'm not going to read all of that to you. It's a lot. But we did roughly start out with 1,000 students our very first year. It was very chaotic and disorganized, just a lot of kids. And so through the years, we kind of modified it. We had an average of about 675 students through the multiple high schools, mainly focusing on juniors and seniors. And then this year, we decided to really just go all out, and as I've shared with you guys before, it included everyone from the littles all the way to the bigs. And it was 6 hours of pure just excitement from those students. The littles, the look on their faces and the engagement with the vendors, the questions that were being asked were simply amazing. They were not afraid to ask, well, how do I do what you do? And those questions were coming from our little bitties. And so it was just really great. It was very heartwarming for me to watch all of that unfold and come about, because it's been something that we've been thinking about for so long. So our original plan back in 2016 was to work on building a foundation. How do we build a program and an opportunity that is repeatable and shareable, not only here locally, repeatable for our school district to take it over, right, where we can kind of step back and just be a real support system to them to create the opportunity and let them really run their vision from their standpoint, or being able to share it with another school district or another economic development organization. And we've had that platform and those opportunities throughout the last 8 years to share that. And people have taken our vision and done it within their own community and have been successful at that. So I think given the fact that we've now included all of the schools and all of the age groups and all of that, we've now officially kind of put that cherry on top. We've succeeded at our ultimate goal, and now we get to just participate and be a support mechanism to the school district and others to continue this opportunity for students to learn and look at career opportunities from little bitty age, which we discussed just to kind of let you guys know. That's when they're not impacted by their friends going, ooh, you want to do that? They get to ask those questions and engage and really learn that it's okay to be a male nurse. It's okay to be a female welder, right? Like those are those exciting times. And so we were able to do that for the first time this year. It was very, very exciting. So here's just a little recap. So I don't know, can I make that play? How do I make that play? Thank you. So this is just a really short video of kind of the day. And how did we make it happen? We cannot do it by ourselves. So through our partners, every year, that entire group of people have come together to make every bit of this program happen. Here are some of the marketing pieces that we built for this year. The EDC staff did build both of these pieces, the save the date and the vendor outreach. And then we've reached out to over 120 vendors and ended up with it went too fast. There we go. 1,800 students, 6-hour event, 61 vendors, and definitely countless volunteers. And that ranges everywhere from our partners, but mainly school teachers, right? And so they get to really kind of cruise around and interact with the vendors too, which also helps enhance and encourage the mentorship program and the internship program that the school district has implemented in the last year as well, or last 2 years. Here's another visual recap for you. TCS Mechanical, which is the big blue building that's going in on Highway 71, they are creating enormous opportunities, not only for our community, but the surrounding area as well. Numerous of their staff members are certified teachers through the 286 Plumber Pipe Fitters Union. So we were very excited to have them there and have the virtual welding machine. The kids loved that. Our police officers, Circuit of America brought the F1 car for the first time, not just the Audi pace car. We got an actual car there this year. Andreas and his team at the fire department, always an amazing job. The kids love that. We had the school district put an opportunity in the back for the kids to go and take pictures of what they want to be. We had panels. The city of Bastrop had an entire panel, as well as Indeed, Ascension Seton. So the kids got some more one-on-one focus on like what it takes to be in different corporate environments or different organizational environments. Again, just some opportunities with some of the students throughout the day. Again, the fire department and the ambulance service, Acadian, excuse me. And we don't need, can we play that or no? I doubt it. Okay. So that's it. That's what we have. Just a quick recap of the Youth Career Day. And again, thank you guys for allowing us to continue to be a big part of that. And we look forward to continuing to do that in the future.
I want to say something. I actually attended this event. It was well organized. I thought it was really cool to see not only the public services like the fire department and all that, but Indeed was there. They were engaging people. And I don't know about you, but when I was in high school, to come to an event like this, it really solidifies kind of where I want to go in my life, my career. And I thought it was wonderful, especially the size of town we had and the involvement, and everybody was interacting. I mean, all the vendors were talking to the children and the teens or tweens, and you really saw them engage. I mean, it was like they were really interested. So
Yes.
I applaud the effort that went into doing something like this. So well
Thank
done.
you. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Okay, well, we've come to item number 4, which is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn, trying to make a banquet.
Second?
Favor? Aye? All right. Thank you very much.